for some people, it's these pleasurable moments or these moments, these peak moments. And then so that they'll have this great vacation or they'll have this milestone that they've reached. And then everything in between is just filler. Whereas all the other values that you have, because you're just pursuing that version of success, that gets you to make a whole lot of bad decisions that you will regret. Really simple principle when it comes to choices and actions. And I asked myself, is this choice made out of love or fear? So love being that sort of this positive energy, and fear being a sort of a negative, the yin and yang kind of. You learn that meditation. You can't get rid of your thoughts, but you can choose what you're going to give your focus and attention to. And just learning that was such an empowering change in my life. So.
In the following episode, I speak with Peter Teuscher. Peter is the author of Rethinking Happiness, and he's also a seasoned business and life coach who redefines happiness through meaningful change and mental well-being. Drawing from his experience as an entrepreneur, executive coach, and leadership trainer, Peter helps individuals unlock their potential by transforming thoughts, beliefs, and habits. His journey began in his early 30s when he overcame serious mental health challenges, shaping his unique approach to personal growth. Enjoy the conversation, and to add on to this is our 20th episode. For beginner podcasters, it is kind of a milestone, so I really appreciate you for being here and to following our channel or following the episodes. Like I said, this is just the beginning, so every support is welcome. If you haven't liked or followed our channel yet, please do so. It will support us in the continuation of our journey and also to get more interesting guests in the coming time. So thank you very much and enjoy the conversation with Peter. Welcome in the Awake Insights, Peter.
Thanks very much for having me, Henk.
Yeah, great to have, again, an author in the podcast. We don't always have that. And it's always nice to see how someone gets dedicated about a certain topic and dives in that completely to write a book about it. The first thing always is interesting to see, okay, what is the name of the book? What is the book about? And in your case, it's about happiness. So happiness, it's a broad term, a lot used in our society. But what actually is that for you, happiness? What does it mean to you?
Well, happiness, as you say, it's a broad topic, and it's one that I really enjoy talking about. But for me, happiness is this reflection on how we are living our lives. So rather than it being sort of a destination which people are trying to get to or a state that people are trying to maintain, for me, it's a clear indication of how we're living our lives, so that when we're living in a way that is in alignment with our values and our deepest needs, then we feel happy. So happiness is in the moment, and the more moments of happiness we have, the happier our life can be. And by contrast, when we are not experiencing a lot of happiness in our lives, it's a good reflection that either the way we're seeing the world or the way we're living our lives in terms of the choices we make and the actions we take is not in alignment with what we want on a deeper level or with what we value. And I think when we have that contrast, that's when the feedback we're getting from life is that we feel that sense of unhappiness. It's sort of this inner guidance system. And so I use it as a very practical tool to help guide through life. That's what happiness is for me.
Amazing. Do you think that we need to understand first what happiness actually is before we can experience it?
I do, because happiness, that I've defined it in a way that helps me. It's very practical for me. But one thing I start with in the book is giving different sort of views and opinions on how different people define happiness. And I think if it's something you want more of in your life, the first thing to do is to define what it means to you. Because I'll have people that come to me for coaching and they'll say, look, I've achieved all these things in my life. Maybe they might have studied and gotten their career, and maybe they're even married with a family. And they come to me and say, look, I've done all these things and I'm still not happy. So you can see they've done kind of a box checking exercise that says, that society tells me when I do these things, then I'll achieve happiness. And that's the problem. There is no one right way to happiness. It's something that it's important for you to define for yourself. and then find ways to integrate that into your life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and happiness can mean different things for different people, right? It's is it a state? Because yeah, I had previous conversations about happiness, and you hear previous conversations about that. Is happiness a feeling? Is it a state? Is it something that you know? Okay, now I'm happy in my life, or is it just a certain fractions or moments in your life that you feel okay? I feel happy. It's a happy moment. Okay, how can you define that?
Well, happiness is in the moment, and I love the way Thich Nhat Hanh, who not so long ago just passed away, but he talked about it in terms of there is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. So it's a way of living. But I look at in the book, I look at different ways of seeing happiness, and different cultures will define it in different ways. But what I think what I like to focus on is the things that usually get us off track in determining what authentic happiness is for us. For some people, it's these pleasurable moments, or these moments, these peak moments, and then so that they'll have this great vacation, or they'll have this milestone that they've reached, and then everything in between is just filler. Whereas there's so much opportunity for happiness along the way. But when I talk about it in terms of feedback, it is communication, it is feeling. So a lot of people look at emotions as just sort of this response to the outside world. If we injure ourselves, we stub our toe, or we have some pain, we recognize that's communication from the body telling us there's something wrong, there's something not quite right. And yet, why wouldn't we, look at feelings the same way? And
Mm,
so, I can't tell you what's going to make you happy, and I can't tell you what happiness feels like for you, but I
mm,
can certainly tell you that those things that you feel that confirm that the way you're living your life is on track, rather than these kind of dopamine induced pleasurable. My nephew, when he was just a kid playing video games, he's in university now, but so I
mm,
hope he doesn't mind me using this example. But uh, he said, when I play my Xbox, I really feel happy. And then I tried to
mm,
explain to him, well, that's just the chemicals in your brain, having a reaction to what you're doing. And
yeah,
so many people are seeking that kind of pleasurable feedback from life, and that
yeah,
to me is not authentic happiness. So yes, it is a feeling, but it is, if we look at our feelings as communication, then we can get a little bit closer to what it is. I think when we're dealing with words that are trying to describe something very intangible, it's hard to be very decisive about it, because
yeah.
we all have different perceptions of what words mean, or what feelings represent. And so
Mm.
I just like to put that caveat in there. But I hope I'm pointing people to a sort of a clearer understanding of what I mean by authentic happiness.
Yeah, it's as I understand well, it's like a lot of people they are going from dopamine spike to dopamine spike. Actually, you
Mm.
just feel good, and you say happiness is not a feeling, but yeah, they are trying to feel good, right? Um, and maybe because of lack of happiness. So yeah, do you have an idea? Like, I yeah, I think I was quite familiar with that, like having dopamine spikes once in a while by doing something joyful, watching movie like you say, going to a club, dancing, music, all these kind of things. They give you dopamine spikes, and I can honestly say that in a period of my life, I thought that was the thing that made me happy. So but apparently that's not the thing that makes you happy, and in a lot of cases it's maybe it are coping mechanisms for other things that don't make you happy in your life, some pain that you have or things that you discovered or haven't discovered yet. So what would you, I don't know, how would you define that for people that haven't discovered that yet, and help them to understand that this is not what happiness is, and what tips would you give someone to find the real happiness? Hey there. Are you looking to reach a bigger audience? Maybe you have a powerful message to share and you also want to go on podcasts like these or even bigger podcasts and stages, or becoming a recognized authority within your industry. Building your personal brand and establishing yourself as an influencer doesn't happen overnight. But here's the good news. There are clear steps that you can take to increase your chances and create more opportunities. To help you get started, I've created a quick quiz. It are just 12 simple questions that take less than 2 minutes to complete. The quiz will show you exactly where you stand right now and what you can do to take the next step. And the best part, once you've completed the quiz, I'll send you a free guide packed with actionable strategies to help you prepare for those stages, podcasts, and other platforms where your voice needs to be heard. So don't wait, check it out. You can find the link in the show notes to take the quiz today, because your audience is waiting for you. And let's go back to the episode.
Yeah. So a lot of what you're talking about is that pleasure seeking,
Yeah,
and
that's a
those
short
moments.
version of it.
Yeah. So we can still find happiness in those moments where we're together with friends having some laughs. Those are still happy moments. But when we need to take a drug, or we need to have some kind of external conditions be met in order for us to be happy, um, happiness for me is an inside job. So when you need the external world to sort itself out, or to be a certain way, or to fit your expectations to be happy, that is pointing you in a type of happiness that I don't think is authentic. For me, you can find it in very simple things. When I am walking the dog, or when I'm just grateful for my environment, it's a reflection of the way I'm seeing the world. I'm looking at the world with appreciation, and that helps generate more happiness. It's a confirmation that gratitude is working for me, and the way I'm seeing the world is working for me in a positive way. If I catch myself complaining a lot and only focusing on everything that's going wrong in my life, it's going to be really difficult to be happy. When you're angry, it's hard to be happy. When you're frustrated, when you're sad, well, sad, that's kind of an obvious one, but when you're putting yourself in a state or a mindset that feeds back that negative kind of feeling, it's a sign that you're off track somewhere. And
Yeah.
so it can be this when you've accomplished something, but think about it in terms of, if you've accomplished something and you're off to the next thing, and you don't, it doesn't, say you've accomplished a career goal, and it's just kind of not associated with any kind of happy feeling, you'll
Mm-hmm.
know that on a deeper level, it didn't really mean that much to you. But
Mm-hmm.
when you help, like when I finish a coaching session, I feel great. I feel on top of the world. That is feedback for me. That sense of happiness is a sense of fulfillment for me, a sense of accomplishment. But helping others,
Mm-hmm.
that I've found really fulfills me. Whereas
Yeah.
if you make that big bonus at your job, it may give you some excitement in that moment, but it won't last. Whereas when you every time you reflect on helping someone, or some really amazing experience that you had because it really fulfilled you, it was really in alignment with the things that you value and cherish, then that's kind of the authentic happiness I'm trying to point to people towards. And you can do things every day that will allow you to experience that happiness. Um, and the thing is, going back to the point about the external world needing to be a certain way for you to be happy. When I traveled through Asia, I met people who, by our standards, really didn't have much. There
Yeah.
was a lot of poverty, and yet I still had the sense that they were really happy. They had their
Mm-hmm.
community. They had, they appreciated the little things in life. And then I think there was that experience. But when I think also to, I read when I read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, and he talks about this moment in the concentration camp, just brutal conditions, but he experiences this moment of the sun on his face on this cold day, and it's just this sort of reprieve from all the suffering, and he finds happiness in that moment. And that's pointing towards that, I have a way to generate happiness in myself by just experiencing the world, or seeing the world from a certain perspective,
Yeah.
having a certain level of gratitude. That to me gets a little closer to what authentic happiness is. It's this
Mm.
inner process rather than this external conditions meeting your expectations.
Yeah, it's interesting when you're explaining that. What comes up in me is like, we as humans, actually, with all the things that we are doing, technology that we are building, and everything, and all the consumption economy and everything, that we distance ourselves more and more from nature. And all the things that you say brings us closer to nature, and that is actually what we need as human beings. We need to be, we are part of nature, so we need to be close to nature. You talk about connection with other people, you talk about feeling the sun in your face, feeling that connection with that warmth, with that planet, with the universe, basically. So, and that is probably the reason why not so many people are happy these days, because they are actually striving for the wrong things in life.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. And we are conditioned to be consumers. We are, a lot of people will. There's a lot of coaches that are high performance coaches. I
Yeah,
find the people that come to me to improve their performance are already high performance, are already
yeah,
high performers. What they don't have is that balance in their life, because they're continually striving for the next thing, trying to
yeah,
fill this void, this emptiness that's maybe being left by a lack of balance. Maybe they haven't pursued the relationships, or they haven't got some other, they haven't done some healing of their past trauma or whatever. And so that's why I think when you look at people and their Instagram accounts, and it's all about this external, the way I look, the life that I'm living, the car that I'm driving, that points people in a direction that's never going to make them happy. And I
yeah,
think when you look at historically people who had the fame, the wealth, and from the outside looked like they had an amazing life, and yet they'll do something extreme like take their own life. Um,
yeah,
you think about it, if they've achieved all of their dreams and they still can't be happy, how
mm,
hopeless would you feel, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
if you overachieved on all the expectations you had for your career and you're still not happy, how hopeless would that make you, right? So I think
mm,
we live in an age where we have luxury, we have amazing healthcare, we have all these different things that help us live longer and experience more. We can fly anywhere in the world in within a day. We
yeah,
can, there's all these things that we have going that you didn't have 100 years ago, and yet we certainly aren't as happy as past generations are. And that's the thing to be asking yourself. Is the way that I'm defining happiness, uh, is it making me feel, is my life confirming that, are my feelings confirming that I am getting more happiness, right?
yeah, mm,
Whereas if all these things were getting the big house, the nice vacations, the whatever it is that you use as a measurement of your success, I think if that's getting you off track and you're not feeling fulfilled, it's something with the way you're measuring your success. Because I asked
yeah,
someone once, how do you define success? And he said, happiness. So his level of happiness was 1-to-1 his measurement of his success in life. And so
yeah,
if his job didn't fulfill him and make him happy, he would have done something else. If his relationships didn't fulfill him and make him happy, he would have found other relationships. And I think that's what I'm really pointing towards. Recognize that the way that you're living, you're getting feedback constantly. And when that feels good, that when you have that level of happiness, it's just a confirmation that your life is on track and you can keep pursuing that path.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, yeah, a lot of people, they find their happiness by changing their lives to another direction. You are an example of that, but I speak so many other people. They are examples of that. People that worked in the medical sector, people that worked in corporates, people that worked in environments, yeah, where a lot of people in teams strive for certain goals, but not really clear about what it actually is that they're working for. Aside from their own money and how much money they make every month. So yeah, I don't know. In a way, it doesn't make so much sense to me, because does that then mean that everybody that does these kind of jobs are unhappy and should change their life, or is there a way that you can become more conscious and that you also become happy working in a hospital, working in a corporate environment, whatever job that you can do and people come from before they change their whole life? Because to me also, it doesn't seem sustainable that everybody becomes a life coach or a leadership coach or a healer and all this kind of thing. So that's, sometimes I ask myself that question. What is your vision around that?
Yeah, I think the beautiful thing about it is there is no one right way to make people happy. Everybody will find their own way, and I find it what was really inspiring when I was learning about the flow state and reading about Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who kind of used that term flow to reflect the way athletes usually feel when they get in the zone or whatever. And
Yeah,
he talks about it in terms of you finding work or finding something to do that challenges you, but also makes you happy. He adds this happiness factor or this fulfillment factor into how to get into the flow state. So when there's something that you find enjoyment in, happiness in, and it's also challenging, those two combined are what get you into the flow state. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with people. I've built a business in my past, and there were
hmm,
things about that were really enjoyable. I do leadership training in businesses, in corporations, because I think those relationships you have with people, like what are big businesses, what are corporations?
yeah,
They're just people coming together to try and achieve a common goal, or similar goals. And so I think all of that can do amazing things in the world. You don't have to. Finding purpose doesn't need to be I work for a company that changes the environment or saves lives. you
yeah,
can do you can do things that are very practical, but it's how you do them, right? It's the way you execute the
yeah,
job that you do, the way you interact with the people around you. The relationships in our life are the things that will provide the most learning and the most growth for us. And those relationships aren't just the life partner we choose or our parents. The relationships are also the people we work with on a day-to-day basis. And I think
yeah,
the way you handle yourself around other people also can, when you feel like you're making contribution to others, though
yeah,
it doesn't matter on what level you define it for yourself. And so it doesn't have to be I'm going to like you say, be a coach, or I'm going to be a psychologist, or I'm going to leave everything and go help people in developing nations, feed the hungry or
yeah,
whatever. That's a great thing too, but it doesn't have to be that. The fulfillment you're looking for is something you need to define for yourself, and you can
yeah.
find it in any possible walk of life.
Isn't a common factor the high pressure that people just asking too much of other people in these kind of environments? I give the examples: corporates, a medical environment. These are all environments where there is a high pressure. Things have to go faster and more efficient, and I think this is the biggest cause of people getting burnout and stress, and then also feel that they are not free. They cannot choose when they work, when they take breaks. I think it's not related to what they actually do, because there's a reason why they choose to become a dentist, for example. You go to school, you study that. Yeah, okay, maybe it's your parents that wanted that, but some people, they also choose it for themselves. But then
Mm,
they end up doing the work, and then maybe they end up in these environments where there's always high pressure and always that push, and that depends on the management of the company and or the people that work there, and you have experience with that because you're a leadership coach, you work in these environments. So yeah, yeah, tell me something about that, how you change those companies and those cultures within companies to make it more interesting and more enjoyable for people to work in these environments, because if that's not possible anymore, then yeah, we have a real big problem, right? Are you looking to expand your network with other well-being entrepreneurs? Or you want to gain valuable insights into industry trends, business strategies, or sales and marketing? Or maybe you're looking for potential collaborations to grow together with like minded entrepreneurs. If so, the True Impact Club might be perfect for you. It's a community where we meet bi weekly to share our stories and journeys. Are you interested in joining? Just visit trueimpactclub.com to find all resources you need to become a member of the community. Thank you, and let's continue the conversation.
yeah, and yeah. So there's a few things in there I'd love to touch on. Um,
Sure.
you're right. In organizations, one of the things that I like to do when people are willing is to look at the culture of an organization and to look at how we can change it to optimize the way people work, but also the way people feel going to work. Because when you have people that are happy at work, they will make better decisions. In my view, happy people tend to be better colleagues, better partners, better citizens, better neighbors. When you live in a relatively happy state, or you find lots of moments of happiness, you tend to make better choices. I think part of the issue is that people are often, and this is related to the stress and fear, the stress and pressure you're talking about too. A lot of people are living in a fear state. So, what does fear do physically? It creates a lot of cortisol, and having a lot of cortisol in the body is not helpful. Obviously, it's an important hormone for us, but we have excessive levels of it because we're constantly under this pressure. We were biologically, we evolved to have brief moments of that cortisol to help save us from danger, whereas now we're constantly feeling like we're under threat or danger, and so
Yeah.
that fear state really that causes us to make a lot of poor decisions. I don't think any good decisions were ever made out of fear, and so when you can get yourself out of that fear state, then you can make better decisions. And the thing is, though, a lot of our society, a lot of organizations, they work on fear. If you don't do this, this will happen to you. There will be a
Yeah.
punishment. There will be consequences. If you commit this crime, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't punish people who commit crimes, but I'm just saying our whole system is not based on here are the reasons to do the right thing, to do the good things. Instead, a lot of it is very fear driven. And the
Mm.
other thing is people go towards things not necessarily because they're drawn to them, because they have the desire to get there, because they feel this real connection with that profession. A lot of times people will be running away from what they don't want. They will
Mm.
they will be going towards the opposite of what they don't want, and they think that'll automatically mean what they do want, and that's
Mhm.
not the case. So
Mm.
with people, I work a lot on what are your values. You talk about being in a work environment where you're not free to make any decisions. You're very structured. Some people like that structure. Some people like really well organized, systematic
Yeah.
ways of working. But if your values are, I want freedom and autonomy, well, then that's not the right work environment for you. But if you also have this, I really value security, then you may be in conflict. Your values, I'm trying. This job is I hate working there. I hate but it gives me security, and so one of my values is fulfilled at the cost of my other values. And so it's time. It helps to look at those things and try and get those things back in balance. There's been a lot of work done around motivation and what motivates people. And
Yeah.
there's three core pillars. There's a great book by Dan Pink called Drive, and he's done research. He does a great TED talk as well, and he talks about the three things that really motivate people. So autonomy is one, and autonomy can mean it doesn't mean like I can do whatever I want, but it means I have some degree of control. So whether it be our team decides their own vacations independently, or I decide on what projects I'm going to work on for part of the time. Just little things like that give people more sense of autonomy.
Yeah.
The other piece is a sense of purpose. So, and that's not like we talked about, that's not I'm going to save the world or my company is going to save the world. It can simply be whatever, understanding what contribution you make to others or what contribution you make to the goal of your team or your organization. So you've got autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So mastery is the last piece, and that is this constant growth and learning. So why do people learn an instrument as an adult, right? It's not like we're going to earn a living at it. We learn it because it's learning something new, and we get the gratification
Mm.
of progressing and trying something new and accomplishing something new. And
Yeah.
so those are the three things: autonomy, mastery, purpose are big motivators, and a lot of times our organizations don't fulfill those. Right? They're basically it's you get your paycheck, you get your bonus, and
Yeah.
if you don't do the things, you lose your job. So there's the fear piece. So it's these motivations that are that trigger you get the big bonus that can definitely trigger the pleasure center, but it's still a long way away from authentic happiness.
Mm.
So I guess culture in an organization, the way people approach their work, the way leaders then um, incentivize, or the kind of culture or environment they make in teams. Those are all things I think in organizations, because when you get people making these decisions where you wonder how could you ethically square that with yourself to do these things, but it's because they're driven by fear, and they're when they're so focused on these attaining these financial goals because the shareholders need to be pleased, and so
Yeah.
on. When you lose sight of all the other values that you have because you're just pursuing that version of success, that gets you to make a whole lot of bad decisions that you will regret down the road.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, I believe as an entrepreneur or a business owner, when you work with investors and other stakeholders, there it starts by deciding for yourself, are we share the same values before we go into this agreement?
Exactly.
Um, and that's a super important one. And that's the same like within the company. Then, as an employee, if you want to start working for a company, then you have to ask yourself the questions: am I sharing the same values as the company, as the management of the company, as the people that like yeah, directing me what to do, basically. And like you say, it doesn't really have to be like the purpose of the company, because yeah, they can develop different kind of products that are not really a big purpose, but maybe basic needs that people need.
Actually, can I
So
just add something?
sure,
Because
yeah,
you can find purpose and meaning in almost any job, and I love the story of I think it was JFK when he went to NASA and he was touring this site, and I think he asked someone that what they do in the facility, and that person responded, "I'm helping bring someone to the moon," but their
mm,
function was they were a janitor. They cleaned up the place, right? So it's all about the framing. So
yeah,
if you collect garbage and your view of your job is I'm helping keep my neighborhood clean, or I'm helping people in a certain way, it's about the way that you frame it. But
yeah,
if your only motivation is, oh, I'm getting rich, and and this is why I think hedge fund managers get such a negative rap, because they're just
mm,
constantly striving to get more and more and more.
yeah,
And also, billionaires, there are different types of billionaires. There are those who use their wealth for philanthropic reasons, and there are those who are just, it's a competition with other billionaires, who's going to have the most
mm.
toys, who's going to get richer. And I guarantee you those guys are not going to be the happiest, right?
No, a lot of them not. There are some people that are happy too in
Sure.
that state for sure. No, yeah. I also ask myself the question like we are always striving to get more and more and bigger and bolder. But doesn't that have an impact on the people that want to slow down a little bit? And we know a lot of people like that. They they understand that money is not everything. We need to spend more time on discovering ourselves, connecting with other people, finding pleasure, meaning, and become more happy. But I sometimes believe, and I see that you already need to be somewhere in life actually to make it a sustainable living, to make a sustainable life out of that. Because if you're slowing down, you're not you're not following actually the mainstream, which always wants to be more and striving. And you understand what I'm saying? So um I see that a little bit of like a disconnect in a way. And on the other hand, what I also see is that people that already have been quite successful in life. They made a certain kind of a success. They sold a company or something. They made their millions. Yeah, for them it's a different game. For them, it can be more sustainable. They can say, "I'm going to slow down. I'm going to spend more time." Like my last 20, 30 years of my life connecting, going in nature, travel the world, and all these kind of things. So, what is your opinion around that? Actually, is it for everybody or is it not for everybody?
Well, with everything in life, there are trade-offs, and if if you find that life, the professional path is a rat race, you can find other ways. There's this whole movement around tiny houses, which I was fascinated with for some time, and so people downsizing and having less things, and then working at a job that paid on an average, but they had they're just their priorities. They didn't need to have a lot of things. They minimized things, but they had a lot of time to do other things that they enjoyed. So it's about anything. Just like when we say we don't have enough time, it's about prioritization. The same goes for anything else that we do in life. It's about what are your priorities. Naturally, if you're with the system we live in, if you're financially in a position to support yourself, or you're independently wealthy, or you at least have a good foundation, it makes it easier for sure. But I've
And
started working recently in the last year or so with young people, sort of 16 to 20-year-olds, because I think you don't have to get into that. Like sometimes it's a benefit to go through those struggles, to go through and recognize you don't want that. When you find out what you don't want, it gets easier to see what you do want. um,
mm,
but I think we can also not necessarily push our young people into these, especially if they're smart and they're ambitious. You can channel that ambition into other things, other places, because it's not always what gets you the highest monetary reward that's going to make you the most fulfilled. So I think again, it comes back to our values. Um, so I guess to answer your question, yes, it's easier when you do have the financial means, but no, you don't have to do that. Like I say, people who decided to get a tiny house and not live any kind of luxury and not have the other things that people value, and they're still living a happy life. They get to read more, maybe, or maybe they get to spend more time with a pet or the people that are important to them. And so I think that's the thing that you need to square with yourself. What are the priorities that I have? And sometimes you won't know that until you get a certain point in your life, right? So I
yeah,
think that the growth of learning is the most important growth, because I think you mentioned, growing and attaining things. We have this intrinsic drive for growth, and some people try to manifest that externally. They're trying to
yeah,
get. They think that that's the growth that I want. That having
mm,
more, whether it's having, there are men who they never get enough no matter how many women they sleep with, or there are women who don't get enough no matter how many shoes they have. Look, I'm making stereotypes. I know that's not gender specific, but I'm just two really kind of banal examples. But I'm just
yeah,
saying we get this very external idea of growth, when really what we're looking for is this inner growth. And so that can be learning new things. That can be growing as a person through the relationships we have, growing through giving to others. It could be a spiritual practice. It could be being more mindful, right? So all of those things are also growth. And you can be a very wealthy person in terms of life experience and the people you have around you, and not have a huge bank account, right? So how you define that growth.
yeah. Yeah, and I was also thinking, like I mentioned, slowing down, but slowing down doesn't have to be that you have to do for the rest of your life. It can happen that you are at a stage in your life that you feel that you need to slow down, that you need time to, yeah, discover your real purpose, who you really are, what you really want, and then and maybe you discover that you're actually quite ambitious, and that you come up with an idea that you're really passionate about, and then you want to make a business out of it, and that becomes successful, and then also you grow financially. So that's possible as well. Like there are different paths in life that you can take, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
when I find when you're really happy at what you do, you'll likely be very good at what you do. And when you're really good at something that
yeah,
adds value to others, there's a pretty good chance you'll be able to make money at it somehow. I,
yeah,
I mean, that's how our system is set up. It's all about supply and demand. If you are doing things that make yourself happy but don't add a lot of value to others, then it's going to be a little bit more difficult. So I
so
find when you approach things in terms of how can I add value, how can I be of service to others, that can be super fulfilling, and that can make you really happy. And
mm,
you can also find a way to make a living of it. It depends on your expectations. Obviously,
yeah,
if you're passionate about animals and you want to be a dog walker, it's going to be tough to get to make your millions that way. But maybe then the millions aren't going to be that important, because you just love what you do in every minute of every day.
yeah, totally, totally, yeah. What was for you actually the reason to write a book?
Uh, well, there are a number of reasons. Like I said, I really believe that happy people lead lives that are less selfish, that make a better contribution, that make better choices. I don't think that happy people are keen for war or need to abuse drugs, or So I think that's a contribution that hopefully will be a positive one to the world. I also think that if I can, I really struggled, even though I was outwardly successful. I really struggled with depression. I didn't even really know what depression was, and then when I discovered it, I got to the root of it, and I overcame a lot of the things that were holding me back, and as a result, was able to have more quality relationships and so on. But I
Yeah.
think if I can come from that place of in a really dark place where I'm not sure I want to continue with my life to a place now where I experience, joy, happiness on a regular basis. If I can make that arc, I really believe I can help other people do the same. And the more happy people we have in the world, I think the better off we are. So that's really, and I found the difference that I was able to make was um, what made the most difference in my life was changing the way I think habitually and the way I believe. And I work to help people create a philosophy or a system of believing that supports that success and happiness in their life. And I
Yeah.
think whether you're a leader, whether it's in your personal life, having a clear philosophy that guides you is going to be a big help. And it's helped me get to where I am in life. And so I wanted to put that in a book, not a how-to guide, but a coaching approach where here I give you different vantage points to look at it, and then I ask questions for you to find the truth within yourself. And I do that
Yeah.
in each chapter, and I think if we approach life that way with the level of curiosity and wonder about the world, and then find the truth that's within us, I think that's for me is a big part of the path to happiness.
Yeah, but it most comes out of your own experience, right? Because
Mm,
you said it also. Yeah, you had you struggled with some mental breakdowns in your early 30s.
mm.
So can you also share a little bit about that? Actually, what you were doing at that time in your life, and what did you discover about yourself? Actually, as a reason to write the book as well, but also to to change that to take that new direction.
Yeah, there were multiple different things going on, but and it was like a sequence of events that as soon as I took the first step, that it kind of unfolded more and more for me. But
Yeah,
I in Canada, my brother and I we built our own small business together. It was something. It was a really fun. We had a craft brewery, so it was a pretty fun industry. It was from the outside, people really had a very positive view of this dream that people have, very romantic idea of opening a brewery and then building it up,
yeah,
and it worked well for us. But I spent a lot of time alone in my apartment, unhappy, and which people never saw, and it was up and down. I was able to be very functional, but I had some real struggles. But
yeah,
then when I recognized what was at the root of that, I got help from it from various different health professionals. But what also happened is, well, I had chronic back pain, and I went to yoga as a last resort because the chiropractor and everything else I'd tried wasn't getting me healed. And as part of doing yoga, I started doing meditation, and I realized, wow, this is really helping me be more balanced. Then one of the therapists that I was going to recommended a meditation teacher, and so I started learning how to meditate. And all this stuff I was learning, I was eager to learn more. So I started reading books. Back then, Wayne Dyer was a big influence, and just books about just mastering the sort of inner processes. And I think when you learn to get inner clarity, and you learn to master, the way your mind works. I even listened to Tony Robbins and these
mm,
gurus of old, and I think just over years of just acquiring more information, I also started reading some spiritual books because I'd always been averse to, I thought a lot of it was just kind of superstition and so on. And I found actually there was something that was really missing in my life in that direction as well. And so just I think a big part of the journey, I found out in a clearer way who I was, on a deeper
yeah,
level, and how to manage sort of my state, how to change my way of seeing the world, and a lot of the beliefs that stood in my way. And so that was the journey that I took. And when I was what got me to translate that into coaching, actually one of the things that I started doing when I started feeling a bit better, I started coaching basketball. And I coached kids from 15 to 18, junior high school and senior high school. And there was a couple of the players that I really connected with, and we had these long conversations. And I was passing on some of the stuff I was just learning, And I saw a change in them, and I thought, wow, if I could do this for a living. And this is
Yeah.
before I even knew that coaching was a profession. And so that was the kind of the first spark. So I think
Mm.
I love what Stephen Covey says about when as soon as you learn something new, teach it to someone else because it anchors it more strongly within you. And I think that's what
Mm.
I was attempting to do, so that eventually I got to the point where I got my coaching certification and really embarked on doing this full time. But that was my journey, sort of my own healing, my own self discovery and personal development, and then slowly also passing that on to other people and realizing, wow, that this is really rewarding.
Yeah, yeah. What are the main topics for you in that whole process of healing and discovering yourself? What are for you? That's not for everybody the same. What are the main topics that you find still important and that you maybe use in your teachings right now in coaching other people?
Um, yeah, again, beliefs and thoughts are the two really core things. I read a book on basketball coaching back then by Morgan Wooten, who was one of the most successful high school basketball coaches, and he said, in order to be a good basketball coach, you need a clear philosophy, because without that, you lack the roadmap to guide you to where you want to go. And I think
Mm.
that rang true for me. I started recognizing the beliefs that were totally keeping me off track, and I started assembling a personal philosophy for my life. Not everybody likes the word philosophy, but we all have one, because from the time we were old enough to think, we started creating beliefs, and we put it into a philosophy, whether we acknowledge that or not, and we often live by that. And so for me to curate this supportive, positive philosophy was a big step. And then recognizing that I didn't have to believe everything I thought, and recognizing that I could actually change those thoughts. And you learn that in
Yeah,
meditation. You can't get rid of your thoughts, but you can choose what you're going to give your focus and attention to. And just learning that was such an empowering change in my life. So I think those two things, between beliefs and your thinking habits, that is life changing in itself.
so who does that? How does that translate to your work? Is that a combination of um, talking, having conversations, and then certain tools like meditation that you use, and maybe some other things? Or how have you developed that for yourself
Yeah,
and
for
for
my own
others?
life, yeah, for my own life, I've learned that integrating the right habits will help keep me on track. I certainly have a daily meditation practice. I try to add rituals to my morning and my evening. So my morning is always meditation and some form of movement, whether it is doing some yoga or going for a walk with the dog or doing some kind of exercise. That starts my day really well. And then in the evening, some reflection, some a gratitude practice, and just making sure that ending my day, going to sleep with some positive input. So that's the way it works for me. And I also, when I find myself during points of the day, seeing sort of the old habits come up, or seeing myself respond in a way that I'm not happy with, I now have the ability to step back, reflect on, okay, what's behind that? Do I still have some kind of
Mm.
an old belief that's still dragging me down? And then the way I work with that is, I, I'll either contemplate it or I will do some journaling. And I find
Mm.
writing stuff down is a great way to assess, your thoughts. Just getting them down on a page, you can actually separate yourself from your thoughts, look at
Yeah,
them, and look at the language you're using. Recognize, ask yourself, what belief is behind that. Is it fear? I have a really simple principle when it comes to choices and actions, and I ask myself, is this choice made out of love or fear? So love being that sort of this positive energy, and fear being a sort of a negative, the yin and yang, kind of both things contrasting each other. And so that really is a really simple binary that helps me make good choices, or recognize that I have a negative belief because this is a fear-based belief.
yeah,
Um, and in the response that I have to others, it can be, I see there was fear in that response in that person. That works for me as a philosophy. And I'm not saying everybody should adopt that, but I'm just saying it doesn't have to be really complicated. You
yeah.
can, it's just getting it clear for yourself, and making sure that the beliefs you have it, are true to you, but they don't need to be provable to other people. And to,
Mm.
from a pragmatic sense, are they useful to me? You know,
Yeah.
because a lot of times our beliefs can't be proved one way or another. You know, we think we're living in a life based on fact and data, and but a lot of times we're just living a life from our beliefs, right? And so asking yourself,
Truly.
does this serve me? Does this support me? And that's a really key point.
Yeah, exactly. You learn to feel because it's a lot to do with feeling and
Yep.
doing something new, stepping out of your comfort zone, trying something, and see how it changes you, and not wait for the scientific report that shows you that this is what you have to do and try it tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I think our feelings, our intuitions, actually, I find even scientists, whether they admit it or not, they're following an intuition, and then they're trying to, empirically prove it to be true. But they
Mm.
already have a sense that it's true, but they're just trying to prove it. Naturally, we have biases and so on too. But I'm a big believer when you practice it to trust your feelings, trust your intuitions, because it's coming from a deeper place of knowledge. The things
Yeah,
that we internalize, below our level of conscious awareness, that guides a lot of us, and we have a lot of wisdom and knowledge in there that we can draw from, and it communicates with us in terms of feelings, not in
mm,
terms of language, right? So
yeah,
I think that I love that you say, it's a feeling, because our feelings will come either from that deep intuitive place, or it'll come from a thinking place. So if you think about if you're having negative thoughts, it's really hard to feel good. It's really hard to be happy.
mm,
So the first place you look at is, am I having negative thoughts? If you're feeling bad, and if it's not coming from your thoughts, then it's coming from a deeper place, and that's something you should really pay attention to.
yeah, yeah, totally. Is it correct that you mostly work with high achievers, with people that have businesses, or not really?
No, I've worked with all kinds of people.
Mm,
I've worked with people who are looking to change their career or unemployed, but I've also worked with people on a CEO or very top level. So I've even worked with the odd athlete. Um, so there's no limit to the great thing about coaching is it's applicable to almost every area of life, because
mhm,
coaching is this. I accompany people on this journey, so I don't need to be an expert that gives them is acts like a consultant and tells them what they need to do, because I ask the questions that help them find the truth within them, and then help them find their own inner guidance. And a lot of times it's just the questions that they're not willing to ask themselves, or
yeah,
they haven't thought of asking. And so when we learn to look at things from a new perspective, all of a sudden we see new opportunities. And sometimes I'll just open the door and people will go through and they go, wow, I'd never thought of it that way before. And it was just, as an outsider who doesn't understand their situation, asking a question that they wouldn't have asked themselves. And
yeah,
so yeah, it can obviously, I still need to make a living at this. So
mm,
the more lucrative stuff certainly is working with executives, doing the training for corporations. And that's really rewarding, because I feel like I make a positive contribution to their culture. But I also, working with kids or working with everyday people who don't have a company paying for it, uh, you know, that becomes less lucrative, but equally fulfilling.
yeah. But it's amazing that you just your intention is really to improve and make people's lives better, no matter who it is, and yeah, how old someone is, and what people are making. So that's really amazing.
Well, to the
Yeah.
to the point that you made before, naturally, I've been very fortunate in my life, and I built a lot of things. I worked hard, but at the same time, I've had the rewards now, so I can have the luxury of not having to purely do things for the financial reasons. I've set up my life in a way that allows me to do that. So yeah, it is a little bit easier for me to do it, but I know lots of people who just continue on that path of more and more and more.
Hmm.
And I just found I feel a lot happier when I can give back. And
Yeah.
so it took me a long time to get to that realization. And everybody will find it in their own time. So I don't judge people who live life one way or another, but certainly I get a lot out of it. So I'm not saying I'm just being selfless and giving of myself. I get a ton out of whether no matter who I coach. So
Mm, that's amazing. Yeah. Let's go back to your book actually. So, um, Is your book a good way for people to get like a first experience of what you do and what you stand for? Could it be? Is it like a kind of a guide or something, or is it just give the audience a little bit of an idea what they can expect from it?
Yeah, absolutely. I've set it up like a coaching book. So
Hmm.
for every chapter except for one, I have a list of questions. So it takes very much that coaching methodology. So I'll get people to look at things from, I'm a systemic coach. So systemic means that, I take a holistic approach. I look at different components of the system, and a system can be anything from, personal relationships to, the way an organization works, or, our environment is a system. Our body has multiple systems. So when you look at it that way, I will work with people to try and get a big picture. And so in each chapter, I'll give different impulses so people can get the big look at things from different angles, and then I will ask questions so that they can take the time to reflect. And so, but I also have some very practical steps. So there's a chapter on lifestyle where I talk about things, how you can organize your life in a way that makes the conditions in such a way that it's going to be easier for you to be happy, but you still define it for yourself. I'm just pointing
Hmm.
you to some different options. And I do that for choice making. I do that for motivation, for understanding yourself better. And I think when you look at all those different components of your life and you create this philosophy for yourself through the help of the questions that I help guide people with, I think that's really what gives the outcome. So it's not this checklist. It's not this template for here's the system that you need to follow. It's really it's a way for finding your own truth, finding your own answers, and then applying them in your life, and making sure that they lead to the happiness that you're looking for.
Mm, yeah.
That makes sense?
Okay. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Super interesting. Yeah. Um, to make it a bit more practical, what are like the first steps that someone can take actually that wants to rethink their happiness?
Yeah, so the first thing is to help you define it for yourself. I think when you know what happiness is not, that's a good first step, and that'll sort of point you in the direction of recognizing what it is. But you don't necessarily have to know exactly what it is, because sometimes you need to experience it first. I think I had some profound experiences with meditation, or when I traveled through Asia, just backpacked without a job. I was just kind of seeing the world and living day by day, and the way I felt during that period felt very free, very liberated, and I can always anchor myself back into that. Even though I now have a more structured life, so I think having those first glimpses that, and then that will help draw you closer. But as I say, the place that I always start is doing a review of beliefs. So when I look at the different areas of life, so if I say am unhappy with where my finances are, I can actually start to look at, well, what beliefs do I have that affect my finances? If I'm having trouble with relationships, what beliefs do I have around that? And the book asks a lot of those tough questions that will help you get clarity on, what do I need to do to improve my relationships? What do I need to make better choices in my life? What do I need to improve my financial situation? If that's an issue for you, and I think those are the first steps. Understanding a process for self reflection, asking yourself the right questions, and then understanding a way to change. And I think the most profound thing in the book is helping people understand they can change their beliefs. Some people are really tied to, they really feel like their beliefs are part of their identity. And so I really help people to learn how to change their beliefs. And that is, I look at three key areas. I look at environment. So, what are the sort of external influences on me? What are the people around me? What conditions am I living under? I look at experience. So, what are the things over time that have influenced my beliefs, and how can I change that? So, if I have a fear of public speaking, I'll start by speaking to a small group and bigger and bigger. So I have a new experience. And then the final one is repetitive thought, and what thoughts do I think repetitively that aren't helping me. And I use this process of affirmations, which I describe in the book, that apply to
Mhm.
very specific thoughts that I find really helpful. So those, I think, learning to understand the beliefs that are in your way, and then learning how to change them is the most practical thing that you'll get out of the book.
Mm, yeah. It made me curious a little bit about the demographics, if you have an idea around that. On what age you think that people start more looking for this kind of information? And are it mostly men or women, maybe have a family, just left their partner getting do you see some patterns there, or not really?
Yeah, look, for me, I started asking those questions when I sort of hit 30. Some people will, there's no specific age. Some people will get into midlife, like they'll reach 40, and they'll find, okay, there's something not quite right. So it will be different for everyone. I'm amazed at sometimes people, that are into their teens, early 20s, that are already asking very profound questions. So
Mm,
it'll be different for everyone in terms of age, and it's never too late. I think if you're asking these questions at 60, you still have lots of opportunity for change. So I think that's a really an important question, an important point to make. And I think in terms of gender, it's fortunately changing, but I had far more women come for coaching than men
yeah,
originally. I think women tend to be more open to, when you go to a yoga retreat. I've been to a yoga retreat where I was the only guy, or there was only two of us.
yeah,
I've been to workshops where there's 10% are men, and so I think women are far more willing to be
yeah,
involved, because to make change and to make to self reflect, you need to make yourself vulnerable. And as men, we are often, the
the
role
men.
models we have. And so, yeah, men are also feel like, I have to have this hard exterior. Being vulnerable is a little more difficult for us. And it was until I went through therapy and did a lot of personal development stuff. I wasn't really willing to share all this stuff. And now,
Yeah,
I talk about things that I never thought I'd share with anyone. In the book, I've mentioned things that I think my friends in Canada will be shocked to hear. They'll never would have guessed, because
yeah,
I just kept it so closed off.
yeah, yeah. No, yeah, it's so true what you say. I'm also in that space already for some time, and yeah, it's more. It was more woman, and still some in some events there are more women, and if you think about it, how as a person you can involve when you start to be more conscious and more awake and everything, then you also feel more attracted and aligned with other people that are on the same journey in a kind of way.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, then I ask myself the question, if like women, they started doing that already like 10 years ago, and then men now start slowly getting into that kind of work as well.
Mm.
Is that maybe the reason why it's so difficult to get into relationships these days? Or that's an
uh,
whole other topic that we can go into. But yeah,
yeah,
you see a
yeah.
lot that we're looking for people that are, yeah, where you share the same values with, you operate on the same kind of frequency, and yeah,
I think in relationships, it's important that you are open enough, and both people are willing to grow. I think there's the old saying, men want women to stay the same, and women want to try and change their men. I don't know. I don't like stereotypes. I don't want to pigeonhole people, but I think that when you have part of the issue that I've witnessed in some relationships, and I've actually coached people in their relationships as well, is one person will have gotten a point with their life and they just want to keep everything the same. That sense of emotional homeostasis where they don't want change, and then their partner will be wanting to try new things, and so you'll have this growing apart in terms of one stays where they
mm,
are and the other continues to grow, and that can be an issue. And some people just at some point realize that they have completely different interests that no longer converge. I don't think there's any set rule, and I think we live in a day and age where it's a lot harder to connect with people, even though we have social media and everything else. And I think expectations are high. If you expect someone to be the finished product, this is the person that's exactly who I want to have. people evolve and grow. And then I think the other thing is we're in, a lot of people are in this I want, and yet they don't look at what do I have to give. So I
Mm,
think that's
yeah.
also a really important component. But I think when you do this work on yourself and you get to, better in touch with who you are, and you start living more according to your values, you will be drawn to or you will make better choices. As men, sometimes we pick the wrong women, or vice versa. Sometimes women will or regardless of gender. Sometimes we're just drawn to the people that do not um, that 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 fit a certain kind of pattern in our life that we recognize, and they trigger certain things with us that are familiar. And if we haven't done the sort of healing work or the growth work, we'll continue to trigger those things and pursue those things that we don't
Yeah.
realize are really unhealthy and undermining us. And so people will stay in these sort of relationships, or they'll be in very short relationships, and they're cycling through the same thing over and over. And they go, why
True.
do I always meet the same people? Well, if you want to make that change externally, make the change internally first.
Yeah, true. Yeah, they say what you attract what you are, and that's so
Yep.
true. If you think about it, if you go deeper into this, then it becomes more true actually. When you start realizing that, yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, and also what you said, you're more critical in your choices that you make actually, but also the consequence of that is that you have less options in a way.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
But I think the right person will be out there for everyone. And when you get more comfortable with who you are and being on your own, then you will be. I think you will see more clearly the person that's going to fit into your life.
mm,
There are a lot of people. Look, there. It was only a couple of generations ago that people stayed together because they got married, but
yeah,
it's their comfort zone out of convenience, or out of tradition. And then people started to leave their relationships at the drop of a hat rather than be willing to work through them. They didn't have the patience. So neither extreme is really good. And I think if
mm,
we can be more compassionate and patient with ourselves and with others, we'll have healthier relationships.
mm, yeah, amazing. Before we end this podcast session, is there something that you would like to share that we maybe haven't talked about, or maybe some last words for the audience that you think are important to say?
Yeah, I think the most important thing that I like to remind people of, and we touched upon it briefly, I think it's just important to remember: don't believe everything that you think. We sometimes become so identified with our thoughts, and we believe that inner narrator in our head that's giving commentary on the world around us, and about ourselves. I think when we learn to question, is that true for me, or is that beneficial for me? That's one of the most helpful things we can do. So don't
Mm,
believe everything you think.
amazing. That's good advice to end this podcast. Yeah, Peter, I would really like to thank you for being here and to share all these valuable insights. And I really would recommend everyone also to read your book. You can find it, I think, on the most common platforms, Amazon. I think there's an audiobook as well.
Yes,
Maybe you can share something about it,
sure,
where people can
absolutely. I
find
think,
you. Yeah.
yeah, the best way to find me is on my website, and that's peterteuscher.com, and my last name spelled Teuscher. And that I write a weekly blog. So if the stuff we've talked about is interesting, I cover a wide range of topics that I hope will sort of inspire other people. And then there's a link for the book as well. So yeah, that's probably the best way to find me.
Amazing. Yeah, I found it a really inspiring conversation, Peter. So, yeah, I'll encourage you to continue doing this kind of work. And maybe in the future, you can write another book. Who knows? I would be
I have
curious about that.
Yeah, I've plenty of things in the pipeline. So one
Okay.
thing at a time. I tend to try and get into, I have so many things that I love to do, and it's just about finding the balance and making sure that I'm keeping myself on track. But look, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be on your show with you, because I love talking about these things, and I hope our conversation has inspired and helped other people. So
Yeah, I hope so too. And yeah, I thanks again for being here. And yeah, let's stay in touch.
thanks for having me.
See. Bye bye.
Cheers.